Welcome to MedRoom Chronicles, Nursing Uncensored. Join nurses and other care providers as they let you in on discussions usually reserved for the privacy of the locked medication room. In this weekly nursing podcast, the filters come off and we tell it like it is. Your hosts, nurses Adrianne Benning, Andrew Craig, and Brad McLaughlin, are here to educate and entertain on all things in the nursing world. This podcast is intended for nursing students, nurses, or anyone who wants a sneak peek into the real world of bedside nursing. So join us, laugh along the way, and maybe learn a little something too. And thanks for listening, guys. Hello, nurses. Here at MedRoom Chronicles, we may be uncensored, but we are not unfiltered. Protected health information has been changed and concealed to comply with HIPAA. The things we talk about are combinations of years of experience with thousands of patients, things we've read, or stories we've heard. If you think we're talking about you, we're not. Also, we're real nurses here to provide accurate and helpful information, but don't take us as fact without doing your own research. Refer to your state's Board of Nursing, Practice Acts, and your institution's policies and procedures if you have questions about your practice. Lastly, our very strong opinions are ours alone and do not reflect that of our employers or educational institutions. Thanks for listening, and happy nursing, folks. Welcome to another episode of MedRoom Chronicles. I am Adrianne. I am here with Brad.
Yes.
Brad, we want to talk about going back to school, right?
Of course.
There are a couple different ways people can do this, especially once you get to be
out of school, out of undergrad, you mean?
Yes, undergrad. You're a grad student, so we're going to try to make this an all-inclusive list of pro tips for going back to school. We can first talk about like an in-classroom setting, and then we can talk about the online components and how to prepare that way. Does that sound like a plan, man?
Plan, man.
I have a very different style of learning than I do. Like, my personality is very laid back, very casual, very coarse, I guess you could say, if you want to talk about my language and humor. But when I'm in school, I'm very much a type A personality. I like my things organized. I like my notes clean. I'm very, very fastidious. What about you? What kind of a student are you, Brad?
Oh, I'm pretty laid back. I'm kind of one of those students that, you know, they sit in class, they watch the PowerPoints, they learn from the PowerPoints. Unfortunately, I never really studied in school because I mostly learned it sitting in class.
Like on site, yeah.
Right. So I'm a very on-site learner, and plus I'm a very kinesthetic learner. So sitting in class for me was hard as shit.
Same. Absolutely.
I learned more in clinical than I did in sitting in a classroom. So usually I would learn most of my stuff in clinical, and then we'd have to apply it to the test. So that's how kind of my student life went.
So I guess to jump right in, I am someone that I'm a little bit different than you are. Sometimes struggle with other people's style of teaching because I get bored really easily. I'm kind of fast. Like, I like fast paced, like faster paced than most people like. So I get really bored and pretty irritated when somebody's like belaboring a point. When I'm like, you can explain this in 3 sentences, move on. Because I'm very like fast paced, little maybe too manic when I learn. I like to basically be prepared and have the material under my belt by the time I get to class. I want class to be my opportunity to reinforce what I've learned, ask questions about shit that I don't understand. It's hard to ask questions about shit you don't understand when you don't understand any of it because you haven't even looked at the notes prior to class. I'm very much a proponent of review everything before you even get to the classroom.
Yeah. You're one of those students.
You know, Andrew said the same fucking thing to me but here's the thing. That's how I learn best. If I don't do that, then I struggle. And I also encourage other people to do that as well. And I'm not saying like go through and read the whole fucking textbook the night before. I'm just saying open up the chapter, look at graphs and charts, look at main concepts, look at things in bold, look at the chapter summary. Like the textbook author or publisher or whoever is literally giving you a highlight reel of everything in that chapter. So I feel like even if I haven't like mastered the content, I at least know what the fuck they're talking about when they use these like multi-syllabic words that everybody else is like, what is that? And I'm like, did you not even like, do you even own the book?
Yeah, well, it all depends on where you go to school too, because when I was in school, my teachers very rarely used the book in their PowerPoints. Most of it was what we needed to know. The book was just kind of like a secondary resource, you know, like they would go through the PowerPoints and then they would say, so read in your book and see how these apply. But most of the stuff you actually needed to know was in their PowerPoint. I myself did not see any reason to read a lot, but I did still do the, you know, the bold terms and chapter headings.
Yeah, just like looking at the worksheets, review the case study before you. I mean, I'm not saying like I spent hours doing this, but you know, before I went to class, I was flipping through this shit before I threw my bag in my book in my bag. I just feel like some instructors are not very good, and in that case, you're going to have to supplement your own learning anyway. But if I've got a good instructor, someone who's really intelligent and knows their stuff, I don't want to necessarily spend my time getting them to help me master basic concepts. I want them to help me understand this shit well enough that I can take care of it on a test.
Right.
But also, you know, I was in a small class, so I had the ability to, I don't know, I feel like since it was a small class and we got our PowerPoints in advance, everything was like posted a week or two before. So I had plenty of time to look that shit over. It's not like I was making exceptional, you know, leaps and bounds in my schedule to do that. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that point. I just think it's really important to be prepared before you step in the door.
And that's kind of carries over into practice too. So
absolutely.
Remember that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Now is the time to develop good habits. Nursing school is hell. It is brutal on your mind, your body, emotionally. It's really tough. At least for me, it was. I don't know if everybody has that experience, but it's a rigorous program, regardless of where you go to school, because you're expected to be
professional.
Yeah, and to keep people alive. Like, this is not a thing that you can just wing it and be okay.
Although some people do.
Some people do, but you know, even those people that do, they've at least mastered enough they've at least managed to not kill somebody outright, you know? Like, they've at least figured it out that much, even the bad ones.
Exactly.
So what else? What would you recommend? What's your like number one tip for somebody starting school again, going back to class?
Oh, let's see. I never did this, but I feel you should always record your instructors, because mostly you forget what they say as soon as you walk out of that room.
Yeah.
So
as soon as they say it, you're like, wait, what did you just say?
So if you have something to fall back on, you'll be able to play it over, think about it, understand it, and then use it the next time you go to class.
Absolutely.
And then you have all their lectures on. So
right. You know. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's really nice. You know, I had like a half-hour commute to school, sometimes 40 minutes in bad weather. So I had time to listen. You know, I would always listen to like a portion of the previous lecture on my way up to the next lecture. You know, I wasn't able to listen to the whole thing because my classes, I went once a week for like 3 hours a night.
God love you.
Yeah, well, that was the evening and weekend program. So I would do class from like 5:30 to 8:30. Then I would drive home, spend about an hour at home, and then I would go to work at 11. That was my life for a while. It's important to record those lectures so that if you missed something or your notes aren't clear or whatever, you're right. You do have something to fall back on. So I think that's a great idea. And everybody has a recording device on their phone. Like if you're in a huge lecture hall, yeah, you might not want to leave your phone on the podium while the professor lectures. So get like something cheap. Get a $20 cassette recorder and make that shit happen. Well, not cassette. God, I'm showing my age. Just get a cassette recorder.
Even if you said compact disc, I would have been like...
You would have been like... Well, okay, so I have a friend that I haven't seen in 22 years that is literally coming to visit me for the first time tonight. And I have a cassette of us on my karaoke machine talking shit about all the people in our class. So we're going to get drunk tonight and listen to this cassette. But that's why cassettes are on my brain. It's like an all 80s, 90s weekend here at my house.
80s, 90s. I was a kid in the 90s, so...
Well, yes, I know. You're just a wee boy compared to my old self. Yeah, so this is going to count as my 20-year high school reunion, which I refuse, or my 20-year elementary school, whatever. It's been a long time. However many years it's been.
I have 2 years until my 10th reunion.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know.
You know, I didn't go to my high school reunions, any of them that, well, I guess there's only really been one big one, but people that I want to be in contact with, I'm in contact with. Case in point, she'll be here tonight. So the rest of them, they can go suck a frog.
That's a new one on me.
All right, next back to school tip. Honestly, I think that the most important thing that people can do in terms of like study tips or supplementing their own, because here's the thing. Lectures are great. You've got to supplement your own learning. If you really want to commit this shit to memory, you can't just go to lecture, study, take a test, and move on. Like, you've really got to make this in your head, like, stay. And for me, the way I do that is I use YouTube like a maniac. You would be shocked at the information that you can find on Pinterest. The mnemonics, the diagrams, the silly little like illustrations that people make to help you remember like symptoms of a condition. There is like 1,000,005 pieces of great information that you might not have expected to find on these social platforms. I listen to a lot of nurse podcasts and some of them on Facebook. Like, I'm going to give a shout out to Sean Dent, who probably has, I think he may have seen some of my posts because he commented on one. Hey, Sean, if you're listening. Anyway, he did he basically vlogged every day for a year, just like a daily, like unedited vlog on his Facebook. And the stuff that I learned just from watching his vlog helped me more than a lot of stuff that I picked up in clinicals or in the classroom. So always be supplementing your own learning. If you go to the Medroom Chronicles YouTube channel, I've actually carried over some of my subscriptions to science channels that I used all through nursing school. There are some really, really great ones that have everything from like actual animations of like patho and biological processes all the way through to like channels with like test taking skills. And there's a great video in there about how to tackle select all that apply questions.
Right.
Bane of every nursing school student's existence. So yeah, that's my next tip, is always supplement your learning with the millions of resources that surround you. So apps, websites, podcasts, videos, whatever, like that information is out there.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. I mean, it saved my ass, because if I was in a semester where the teacher's teaching style didn't jive with my learning style, then I would be like, well, I guess it's up to me to figure out how to learn this. And honestly, Khan Academy Medicine, Brightstorm for chemistry, they saved my ass for chemistry. There is a channel called Handwritten Tutorials. Oh my God, these notes are gorgeous. They helped me. When I think about how the fucking kidneys work, I picture this guy's drawing. I'm telling you, man, because it gives you a reference point. It's like the reason clinicals are so helpful is because, like, you can learn about this disease process in class, but then it's not until you like take care of a patient and they become real to you and you remember like, oh, he had these symptoms and we gave him this med, and like it all then starts to come together,
Right. And the other thing about taking matters into your own hands is, like, when I was in school, I chose to tutor people because that actually helped me learn more. I actually encourage students to tutor their peers, students that are younger than them. It always helps you learn. And our school had a dedicated nursing tutor, but sometimes it's better to have someone that's going through it themselves teaching you.
Absolutely. Actually, the little short, like 10-minute podcast episode that I put up last night on our channel, that's one of the tips that I gave. So fist bump on being on the same page there. Yeah, bump. Totally. Yeah, bump, bump. I think that that's such an important thing to do. Like, is this something that you've always done?
Yeah, I mean, I started sophomore year of college, I believe. That's when we have health assessment. One girl I knew was really having a hard time. So she asked me to tutor her. And by the end of the year, she started out with a C minus, I think. I think that's what it was. And then she ended up with a B+ in health assessment.
Very good, very good.
And even the teacher knew I was tutoring her, and she kind of told me before she told her that she passed. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I think it's a great way to reinforce what you've learned. It's another way to like commit it to your memory so that it becomes your own. You know, they say that you don't remember a word until you've used it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I mean, this is that same concept. So if you're describing it as you would if you were a teacher in front of a classroom, all that's going to do is reinforce your understanding of it. And
Yeah.
it also will point out areas that maybe you're not so confident about. Because if you're starting to teach something and you're like, oh, maybe I don't know this part, well, then you've just triggered yourself to something that you can strengthen. I think that that's excellent. I didn't do any tutoring like formally, but I definitely would help out where I could. I shared notes where I could, mostly because, like I said, I would find stuff online and I would be like, this diagram is genius. And so, since I believe nursing is very much a team sport, I believe in passing that shit around. You find a good set of study cards, you fucking share that shit. That is gold. Don't sit on that.
Exactly.
Let your friends in on it. Like, let's empower each other so that we're a stronger team.
Yeah, and you really have to support each other because there's no way you're going to get through if you
Yeah.
don't.
Exactly.
It's no
And
way.
you know something? When I started school, I'm very much like, even though I'm very extroverted on this show, I am very much an introvert. And I had massive, like, first day of school anxiety when I started the nursing program. I was like, I'm not here to make friends. I just want to learn, keep my nose to my books, and get the hell out of here in one piece. Um, and now there are people that I like text constantly hilarious shit about work and life. And these are people that I never expect I'd be friends with. And
Yeah.
now they're people that I can't imagine not talking to them on I don't see them all the time. Some of them I haven't seen since I graduated, but we talk as though we just saw each other the other day.
Yeah. And there is kind of a difference. This is nothing towards you, but you went to school later in life.
Yeah.
And I've been a nursing instructor, so I've seen this firsthand. People that go into nursing school as a second career or have already had a long-standing profession tend to do better. Not necessarily better, but they tend to be a little bit more self-motivating because they know this is their second career and they know that they have to get this done. So those are people that undergraduates can really pair up with to get that kind of momentum.
That's true. Yeah, that's really true. And I also think that maybe the same is true in reverse, that if you're someone who maybe hasn't been to school in a while and you're unfamiliar with, like, say, the online registration system or, any kind of tech. I mean, I'm going to be cliche and say like old people struggle with technology, but if you're having a hard time getting on to like the software for class or whatever, multi-generational schooling, I think, is a wonderful thing because it's true. You get the benefit, of having like the maturity of non-traditional students and the self kind of motivation, but then you have like the fresh ideas of new students, the ability to innovate the way they learn. I think there's a huge benefit, even though I very much became an ageist in nursing school. And I was like, what is she, like 19? She's never wiped a butt before. She doesn't even know what a hemorrhoid looks like.
But yet they do.
Yeah, exactly. So because I am what some people would call a zennial. I don't know. Have you heard this term before? Zennial?
Like the right in between the millennials and the...
It is, and the Gen Xers. That is where I fall. It's absolutely true because I grew up like rollerblading outside, and my first phone was like a 20-pound brick phone from Motorola. And like, I had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. So I kind of feel like I've grasped the best of both of those kind of demographics, where like I do have like the self-driven, steadfast approach to school. I'm like, my mom ain't paying for this. Like, I got to make this work because this is my money that I'm spending.
Right. Wait, are you talking about one of those car phones?
No, it wasn't a car phone. It was an actual cell phone. But it was huge. It was a giant. I didn't carry a purse as a kid. I started carrying a purse to carry my brick phone. And the keypad was like one solid piece. So you had to like push it down. You had to like damn near use a pen to like shove the button in to like dial a call. And it would be like, "Boop," really fucking loud every time you hit the button. That was
Oh,
and then like the antenna, if you like brought it up to your face too quick and you stabbed yourself in the face with the antenna, you had like a bruise for like a month because it was like the hardest fucking antenna ever made. So yeah, I that was my first cell phone. It was not like the bag phone that like plugs into the car. I didn't have one of those.
Oh my God. So the other thing about traditional students I was going to say is they enter college seeking very different things because you know how you say you're not there to make friends and you're not there to, dick
Right, I
around.
don't want to be in sports.
So yeah, I mean they're in college for, of course, to gain a profession, but they're also there to make friends. They're also there to make memories,
Right.
So they're there for some different reasons than non-traditional students, but
And I can't blame them for that. I wish I was less of a grouch and less of, a loner because here's the thing. I had so much fun in clinicals, and we did. We went out after clinicals. There was one weekend that they went out, and I can't remember. I either had a migraine or I was sick or something, but I couldn't go, and I was so sad. So they fucking Skyped me in on their phone at the bar so that I could be at the party. Like, so
that's nice.
I didn't expect that I would make, those kinds of connections as an older student, but I guess I did. Actually, the number one student that I still communicate with, like she's older than I am. So
There you go.
Yeah. Also, I want to take some time to also address the folks that are doing online school because it's very different than being in a classroom. In a classroom, you have much more structure. You have someone that's kind of like guiding your study a little bit more closely. With online school, like what you and I are doing, I'm still working on my bachelor's, my RN to BSN. You're working on your FNP. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes. So we both are doing online classes, and I feel like up to this point, my classes, and you can tell me if you've kind of had the same experience, I think you have. There have been a lot of online discussion boards, in lieu of that in-person classroom discussion.
Yes, and the reasoning behind that, I believe, is when you get, well, this is more coming from a graduate point of view, but when you get to a graduate level, they really want to know and evaluate how you can hold a discussion about the topic and if you can have a cohesive and kind of like a professional conversation about it.
Sure.
And obviously it's always an APA format, and they still drive that into your heads. Don't forget it, everybody. Please do not forget APA.
Just learn that shit now.
But yeah, I mean, circle practice is a big part of what I learned in undergraduate school. And I can see how having an online discussion board kind of brings that into reality,
Absolutely. And I think, even though I'm at a level that's still growing towards, I think our goal is the same, to be able to talk at length about a topic, think critically, put information to practice with actual human beings in front of you and not just describe a patho. But of course, we're at we're not at a depth that you're at. But I do think it's important that we start exercising those muscles in those online discussion boards. And some people, do a really half-assed job of it, which always shocks me because I'm like, this is a pretty competitive program. You should probably write more than 3 sentences.
Right. And a lot of your grade depends on the discussion boards. Like, My class right now that I'm taking is all discussion board with 3 papers. So if you do 0 discussion board, you basically fail the class.
Right, right.
So,
And I just got into my class information for this fall. They just opened it up a couple days ago. But one of my classes is all discussion and then an exam at the end. And there's a big long intro on the homepage that talks about how this discussion is so important to us being able to apply what we're learning and not just recite a bunch of shit out of a textbook. And
right.
that's like the number one thing I think about nursing is that what's that? There's like it's like a famous quote. It's like you are not studying for a test. You are studying for the day when you're the only thing between the patient and the grave. And that's pretty dramatic, but it's true. Like you're not like Andrew and I were talking about this the other night. It's like, yeah, that acid base shit you learned in chemistry, you will never not talk about that. Like that is going to be, that's like one of the worst exams that my class and I had to face. Everybody in the program always buzzed about how hard the fluid and electrolyte exam was and the acid base management. But you know what? Get that shit down the first time. Figure it out because it's going to come back over and over again. So,
and when you least expect it.
yes, exactly. You're going to be like, oh, really? This again? I guess I better pull my notes out from last semester. Yeah, it's never going to go away. So if there's something that you don't understand, don't cower away from it. Hit it head on repeatedly.
Yeah, and the other thing about being an online student is your textbook, you do not rely on your textbooks as much as you used to. Because really they want to see if you can go online, figure out an actual scholarly journal,
right,
and use it to your advantage. They're not telling you to recite something out of a book. They're not telling you to read all this stuff and then basically throw it up again. You know, right. You have to actually go search for some resources and figure them out for yourself. And I think that's a good thing to warn people that they have to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of what I was saying earlier about like utilizing your resources. I said the phrase that I used in the other podcast episode was nobody's going to give you a syllabus for your career. Like you might have your charge nurse, you might have your coworkers around to help you, but there's going to be that moment when everybody's busy and you don't have time to wait around for an answer. You need to figure out, if you don't know the answer, you need to figure out where it's coming from. You need to know how to look up your policies, your medication compatibilities. There are all these things that you need to figure out how to do. And part of the reason that they hammer home how to use a database, how to use, how to access your basically, if you don't know an answer, you are responsible for figuring out where the fuck it is. Yeah, and so exactly. I think that's an important skill to develop regardless, online and in a classroom, but especially online because you don't necessarily have someone sitting next to you in class that you can say, oh, hey, where'd you get that information from? Right. Like you are responsible for figuring it out.
I mean, yes, online you can say, here's a resource that I found. Use it if you want to,
Of course. But I guess what I'm saying is you're not going to have someone holding your hand. Like right. You're going to definitely have people that are sharing information with you, people that you can go to ask questions. But really, when it comes down to it, you don't want to be 100% reliant on other people to be able to get to the information that you need.
Right. And hand-holding is not condoned in nursing school, by the way.
No, definitely not. If you need help, that's one thing. Ask for help. But if you need help, don't rely on a tutor to just teach it to you. Like, right. Come to the table having done your work. If you're really struggling, show up with an attitude of, I'm putting in 60% of this and you're helping me with, or whatever. The point is, make sure that you're not just relying on someone. You're going to sit back while someone teaches it to you. Like, you right. have to be actively engaged in your own learning.
Right. And that's really big on campus. Not so much on, online you're self-directed, so it's a little bit more, you have to do it on your own, and there is no one to feed you information, period.
Right.
But on campus, it's a little bit easier to go to a tutor and say, okay, I've got this far. Now give me the rest or help me with the rest. So,
Right. Right. Um, but yeah, the other thing that I do at the beginning of every semester, this is totally unnecessary, and I don't think everybody needs to do this. Not everybody has access to it, but I'm kind of a freak for organization, and I already told you I love office supplies and school supplies. So I, at the beginning of the semester, love to print out everything I have access to. Well, maybe not everything. Some things are unreasonable. Some things I'd rather just have online. But I do like to print out the majority of things that I need, put them in their dividers with their tabs, and, make sure that my calendar is perfectly filled out for the whole semester. Like, that's the type A in me. Because also, like I said, I'm type A in school and very, like, fly by the seat of my pants in my life. So if I don't have that book, that like planner or that Gmail calendar to keep me in check, I will lose points over stupid shit because a due date just blew right past me and I didn't even notice because I was making French fries with Doug. Like, so I actually, and that's another point. Don't miss points over stupid shit. I went from an A plus to a B plus in my class last semester because bitch missed 2 discussions. I lost 10 points of my grade for a topic I could have talked about for hours because I missed the deadline.
yeah, that plagues a lot of people.
Don't give away what you've earned. So that's my other big tip is like, whatever you need to do, set reminder. Like, I actually put at my, God, if the Gmail went down tomorrow permanently, my brains would be forever fried. Like, I have everything in my life blocked in my Gmail calendar. So whatever works for you. But I see students struggle when they come into class and like their binder busted open and all their papers are everywhere and they're flustered and they're struggling to get their PowerPoint out for that lecture and they can't find their worksheet that they completed. And I'm just like, oh my God, I want to like go to Office Max and like fix you.
I will say I was not very organized in nursing school, mostly because I didn't print stuff off. It was all on my computer. But I want to say I printed off like 2 things maybe because the teacher said to. Because I didn't want all this paper laying around.
That's interesting to me because as a kinesthetic learner, I remember things that I write, that I draw, that I highlight, that I diagram. And so for me, the action of making those notes, it's not so much having them to review, but the action of creating them that is most helpful to me.
Would you say that's a kinesthetic learner though, or more of a visual learner?
I would say kinesthetic because if you gave me a diagram to look at, it wouldn't help me. But if I copied that diagram with my own hands and I use multicolored ink and like actually made it into something that I created, then I will remember it till the day I die.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
so I would say it's more kinesthetic.
Yeah. A lot of people might confuse that just because I think when I was in school, they taught kinesthetic learning as you actually have to do the action, like nursing. You have to actually do nursing.
Which that's true as well. I don't think I think those two can exist in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the difference for me is that same diagram, if you just had me look at it, would make no difference to me unless I looked at it every day for a number of weeks, like I did with my like when I took chemistry and I had to memorize the carboxyl groups or what I see now I can't remember what they're called. Like when I had to memorize the different substrates or whatever that would attach to the molecules, I couldn't remember that shit. So I drew beautiful charcoal drawings of what each of the bonds and stuff look like and hung them in various places in my house. So when I took the exam, And I had to remember, oh, like, what's this carboxyl group look like? I had to think, oh, that's the one that was hanging over the sink in the bathroom that I brushed my teeth to every morning. Um,
Oh,
so if I'm exposed to it repeatedly, then it's helpful to me. But otherwise, I need to be like, that's why I rewrite notes. I don't do it because I'm anal about the way they look. I do it because if it's something that I don't remember or I keep forgetting, like for example, when I had to take my exam on all these like oral diabetes medications, I one night before the exam went out to ramp 3. This was back when I was a smoker and I illegally smoked on campus, which I haven't done in years.
tisk, tisk, tisk.
Yes, well, I haven't had a cigarette in 3 years, so bravo me.
Hey.
But anyway, I remember one night I went out to ramp 3, sat in my car on my lunch break, and just wrote out the medications and their actions over and over again like a fucking serial killer. So I would write like diabeta, diabeta, diabeta. It does this, reduces insulin, like. And so seriously, like if somebody had found that piece of paper lying on the ground in the ramp, they would be like, oh my God, I'm in a horror movie and about to be murdered. But it was that repetitious writing that helped me remember that information.
For all of you listening, these are very interesting ways to study.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like the reason that I'm sharing these is because these are not your usual like typical tips. But where that came from is that when I was a kid, I had a hard time memorizing my multiplication tables. And so my dad taught me that the best way for me to learn them was to write them over and over and over again. And that's how I memorized my multiplication tables when I was a kid. And so that act of like repetition has always helped me. But I also recognize I have a very strange style of learning to some people.
Yeah, to most people, I have a feeling.
But you know what? I've always been a good student, and I've had people say to me like, they'll see the way I take notes, or they'll see something that I've done as a study device, and they'll be like, "That's really cool. I think I'm going to steal that." More power to them. So I'm weird, but sometimes people think these ideas aren't so bad.
No, some people.
But here's the thing. Everybody has a different style of learning.
Exactly.
So not everything is going to work for everybody. But that's why I like to laundry list these things, because then people have kind of like a smorgasbord of helpful hints, and they can kind of pick and choose the ones that sound like it might help them.
Yeah, and I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about those that are going to take the NCLEX soon.
Oh, yes.
That is another group. That's another group that we should talk about, especially when we're talking about school.
Yes.
Because that's going to make or break your career, believe it or not.
Pretty much. Although I will say, I do know, I'm to toot my own horn. I did pass on the first try. I can't remember how many questions that I had, but I didn't do the full round, which was nice. But, I also know really great nurses that didn't pass the first time.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and then came back and hit it twice as hard. And, so I think that is like deserving of an entire show, but we can talk about that now.
We're going to talk a little bit, just some tips to get prepared, I think.
So please start us off, kick us off. What's on your mind?
So my prepared tip would be do as many questions, practice NCLEX questions as you can. Like start freshman year. That's what I say.
Yes, I agree. Even if you don't know what the hell they're talking about, start familiarizing yourself. You need to basically learn their language. You need to learn what they're asking you, how they're asking it.
Yeah.
And the number one thing about doing those questions over and over again, the thing that I think had helped me with the most is not overthinking, because they'll give you a couple sentences about a patient and then they'll ask you a question. They want you to make that decision based on that information you have in front of you.
Exactly.
And I saw so many students psych themselves out being like, well, what if this and what if that and what if he has this? Well, it doesn't fucking say that. So stop thinking about every possible thing this could be and just really zoom in on their language and what they're asking you.
The other thing too, and this is a big one, do not confuse NCLEX world with the real world because they are nothing alike.
Amen.
They are absolutely nothing alike because in NCLEX world, everything is perfect. You have every resource you could ever want laying in front of you. You have all the staff laying, or you're actually the only one there, and you can do everything.
You can do it all. You can do it all.
You can do everything and anything you want. But what they want to know is if you can do the right thing.
Right. And, oftentimes in those, not always, but oftentimes in those questions, there's usually an answer in there in those multiple choice lists that is like the fucking opposite of the right answer. Like there's usually an answer in there that will kill the person that you're trying to save.
Yes.
So
exactly. And
if you can identify that, you can automatically eliminate one of those choices.
Yeah. And I will give you a hint, all of you a hint. 99.9% of the time, calling the doctor is the wrong answer.
No, when they are asking you what you would do, it is never going to be an assessment. It is always going to be an action step for that patient. So if a patient is like, oh, your patient's suddenly having tachycardia and trouble breathing, what do? Observe. Fuck no. You're observing that you need to do something.
Yeah. Don't just sit there and look at the patient.
Yes.
Because this is a vital piece of information that I was told, and I think it is the best piece of advice I ever got. I think I've told you it before. You look at your answers and you imagine yourself doing what you picked over and over again because it's the only thing. If you pick that answer and you imagine yourself doing it over and over again because that's the only thing you're doing for that patient, if it doesn't help the patient, don't pick it.
Dude, let me tell you something. I couldn't remember where I had gotten that tip from. You're the one.
I am the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, just the brief backstory. When Brad and I met, I was a nursing assistant. He was a traveling nurse. He left right before I took my NCLEX. So he went back home right before I took the plunge. And he gave me that piece of advice. And boy, if I didn't use that fucking thing with every single question, if I can only do one thing over and over and over again, what is it going to be? And honestly, it must have helped because, like I said, I only sat in that chair for maybe 40 minutes before I was like out the door with a license. So,
and unfortunately, I'm going to do a little bit of a plug here, but I got that information from the Hearst review, and I think everyone should take that review, no matter if it's offered at their school or if it's somewhere close by. Do it. I highly recommend it. But yeah,
I hear your puppies.
I don't know why they're getting all rowdy. But the other thing I wanted to say along those lines was, because you mentioned if someone's having respiratory distress, like if you think you can't do it, do it. Because, like, if someone's trach pops out, you're not going to call the doctor. You're going to pick the trach up off the floor and put it in,
Right. Put in the obturator first, guys.
Yes, but
yes, it's true. Like, if you're the only thing stopping that, like, if that patient is coding, you're not going to be like, can somebody help me?
Yeah.
You get on that fucking chest. That's what you do. So yeah, sometimes you need to take action, but usually in those questions, 99% of the time, they're not asking you to continue to assess.
Right.
Like
exactly.
they're asking you for an action step. Anyone can say, I would continue to assess. Yeah, you're going to continue to upset. Oh my God. I just got so upset that I couldn't even talk. Yes, folks, make sure it's an action step, an actionable step. But yeah, I think that the other component that's really important to that is, excuse me, I got so upset I aspirated my own saliva. Um, but along the lines of like doing things like, the Hearst review or like other reviews that people say are great, I didn't do any of those things because I was poor as fuck and had to just make it through without that stuff.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have access to other things. There's plenty of, like, I think at the time I went to the Apple store and downloaded like every fucking nursing quiz app there was. And some of them you can only get so many questions without paying for the subscription. But hell, I'd do those fucking 50 questions that they gave me for free over and over and over and over and over again while I was waiting in line at the grocery store, while I was taking a poop, while I was sitting in traffic, while Doug was driving. Like, every opportunity I had, I was running through questions.
Right.
So use all of your resources.
I'm pretty sure in my program, senior year, they ended up telling us to buy an NCLEX book, a question book. And by the end of senior year, were supposed to have finished that entire book. And pretty sure it was 2,000 questions.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think they recommend 2,000 questions before you take NCLEX. So.
My school used ATI. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
We also use that.
Yes.
I will say something about that in a minute.
Oh, don't even get me started. That's a whole other episode. We're going to need to censor that one. The language is going to get bad.
Yeah, that's going to be a bad one. My school didn't use it to actually grade. So that was
we did.
That was the best part.
Oh.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. And we don't want to diss ATI, but...
No, because ATI is incredibly helpful. However, like any system, it's never going to be perfect, okay? The things that frustrated me... Here's the thing. I did really well. I do really good on standardized tests. I always have. ATI, when I took the predictor exam, they gave me like a 99% probability that I would pass on the first try. Like, I always did well on those, even if I didn't feel like I did well with the material. So I don't find fault with ATI as a system.
No.
I'll just say that. But like anything, whether it be a professional corporation's charting system or your fucking app on your phone, there are going to be things about it that aren't perfect. Overall, I think those questions are beneficial. I had some feedback about how they gave us feedback. But the rambly point I'm getting to is that we were doing questions constantly. And even though we were frustrated by them a lot of the time, it was still that repetitious nature of getting to know the language and I think you should start your first semester.
Here's my favorite fun memory of ATI, because they had the focus tests like maternity and med-surg and all that.
Right.
So I took the maternity one and got a 1. I think you get a 1 through a 5. I think I remember
1 through 3 or 1 through 5, something like that. Yeah.
So like 3 is you're good with the content. 4 is like you're really good, and 1 being like you don't know.
you back up.
So I think I got a 1 or a 2 on maternity, and then because I am the first to say I absolutely abhor maternity nursing, and I think maternity nurses are wonderful for doing what they do. But when I took my NCLEX, I had 2 maternity questions, and I could not have praised God more at that point. Because one of them asked me what a CNA could do with a baby, and the other one was a medication question. And I was like, there is a God somewhere.
I had so many maternity and peds questions. I was like, I'm going to die. And then the reason that I knew I was getting, so the way ATI works is that with the grading system, if you answer a question correctly, they'll give you another similar question that's a little bit harder, and they'll keep kind of pushing you to see what your upper limits of understanding are with these questions. And so I knew that I was doing well and got kind of excited sitting there, even though I still in my head was like, you're going to fail, you're going to fail, you're going to fail. There's no way you're not going to fail. which I think everybody walks in feeling that way because you're like fingerprinted and like they do everything except do a rectal exam before you go into the test. And so you're
Uh,
feeling vulnerable and you're feeling like you're not going to do well and this is going to be brutal. Well, as I was going through the test, I started getting these questions that it was like asking me about these like conditions that had like 48 letters in the word and like I'd never heard of it before, and I'm getting these diagrams and these fucked up charts and I'm like, I don't know what this is. But if they start giving you things that are that hard that you're like, oh my God, what universe did I just cross into? It usually means that you're doing well and they're challenging you to see how far and how deep you can go with this information.
Just to correct you, you said that this was an ATI test. That's actually the NCLEX.
That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry. That is the NCLEX.
That is the NCLEX. And you're right.
I know what I'm saying.
Like there was a point in the test where I was looking at medications that I don't even think my teacher would know. That like you were like, wait a minute, and then it would give you these charts to review, and you'd finally find like the sodium's wrong. So you'd just pick the answer that had the sodium in it and hope you were right. So
Yeah. But again, it's like that ability to like reason your way through something you've never fucking seen before, because that's like your whole career, basically.
yeah, exactly.
Like somebody's going to come up with a drain sewn into a part of their body that you're going to be like, I do not even know what the hell that doctor did right there, but we're going to figure out how to change this dressing tonight.
The other thing people have to remember too when they take the NCLEX is this is basic nursing. Like you are basically taking this test so that you don't kill someone. That's all they want to know.
Yep.
They don't want to know if you know what some medication laying on the counter is. They just want to make sure you're not going to give it to someone and kill them.
Yes, that's exactly. That's why they always give you that one option in the list that's like, don't ever do that. Because if you keep picking the don't ever do that options, then they know to like send you down the poop chute. Like you're done. You're not a golden egg. You are going straight to the furnace. Like,
so true.
So yeah, I think that it is. And they do say, and you know, that's not the biggest confidence builder when they say like, we are just teaching you enough to not kill someone. But I mean, that's like your whole career. Like you're constantly leveling up to take sicker and sicker patients in more and more complex situations. And each time you come out of it a little bit smarter and a little bit stronger. And I think that, you know, when you're starting nursing school or when you're in the middle of nursing school or whatever your program is, it can be really daunting to think about how much is ahead of you, how much you have to do. But just focus on the thing that's right in front of you and make sure that that thing that's in front of you is something that you commit to your knowledge. Like, don't just memorize, don't study exhausted, don't try to cram shit into your brain that's not sticking. Like, really learn how to study in ways that it's meaningful to you and then stick with those habits. You know, discipline needs to be something that you develop in nursing school because, like Brad said, there's not going to be somebody beside you going, have you given that medication yet? Because you should have. Like, you're legally responsible when you step out on that unit, and yeah, you need to be accountable for yourself. And if you don't know the answer to something, you need to admit it, and then you need to find the answer. That's right. Yeah. So,
but I think we should also touch on one more subject.
Absolutely.
And I think because this really is part of everyone's schooling, I think we should talk about how to choose your senior partnership. What do you think?
Yes. However, not all schools have the opportunity to choose.
Correct.
But yes, okay. I want you to talk more about this so that I can see the direction you're going, and then I can chime in a little.
So, me having been a clinical instructor, I've given some advice on this subject. Also, I've seen a lot of students go through my units doing their senior partnership, but a lot of students seem to gravitate towards specialty areas for their senior partnership. And in my opinion, and I'm not saying that this is like godsend, but in my opinion, those nurses that have chosen specialties have a harder time integrating into a unit when they graduate.
Yes. Also, to that, I agree. And to that extent, when I when they were in the process of choosing ours, and they do ask us for our preferences, they ask us for our top picks, and then they try to match us up as best they can. But I at one point went to my dean because I felt I had a strong argument for being put on a particular unit at the hospital. And she said, she was an amazing woman, incredibly intelligent, respected woman in my eyes. But she was like, you know what? I believe you'd thrive in that specialty, but that's not what's going to help you pass the NCLEX. You
Right.
need med surge because working a specialty is great down the road, but you need foundation. And she was absolutely right. I was pissed at the time because I didn't get what I wanted. I wanted to be on a unit that like I kind of had handpicked and was excited about. She said no.
Right.
And I ended up going to, well, I don't want to say which unit I went to or which hospital because I actually had two different nurses that I followed that semester because the first one, not only was I not getting what I needed from her, but then partway through my semester, she picked up an orientee, like a staff nurse orientee. And so I was getting half the attention that I was before, which wasn't her full attention to begin with.
Right.
So I switched to a different hospital and a different nurse in a different specialty. And I had the best time and I learned so much. And this nurse was so impressed and wrote a great recommendation letter for me on my last day there. It really, but the point I'm making is you're exactly right. That partnership is so key to how you start your career. I think it's like your final kind of
Yeah.
your
Hurrah.
final your final like guidance ship, I guess you could say.
And it really solidifies you as a nurse too, because when I did my senior partnership, I had probably one of the best people to follow. And I'm not saying that lightly. She really pushed me because I was a CNA as well, like you. So she really pushed me to get away from doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
being able to delegate and make sure that I got my stuff done, but still, do some of the stuff that you had to. But by the end of my partnership, I was taking 5 patients. She was not even, like she was barely doing anything. I was doing things that I should be doing, but without any cue from her.
Same, yeah.
So you really have to get comfortable with that stuff before you go on a unit yourself.
Right.
So I think that's one of the important parts of your senior partnership. And before we go on, do you think we should list some areas that we think are specialties?
Yes, absolutely.
Units?
Yes. So actually for my senior partnership, we called it a preceptorship, but I was on a specialty unit. However, I was on a neuro unit basically, and I was taking 6 patients overnight. But these were patients that had many comorbidities, and so I wasn't just focusing on neuro,
Right.
if that makes sense.
So I think specialty is kind of a word that gets a little bit, I don't think, should we use specialty or should we use like intensive care?
I mean, I think as long as we're clear, when we're talking specialty, we're talking about not general med surge. We're talking about those units that take like one niche population, like pulmonary or neuro or ICU or oncology or what. I mean, is this? Am I going the direction you're thinking, Brad?
I think I'm more thinking about units that actually take on a med surge type. I'm thinking like 5 patients, time
Got it.
management.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
really what I'm trying to get to the point of is like ICUs are probably not the best area to be in for your senior partnership because a
True.
lot of them can't do a lot as students. Maternity, do you have anything you'd like to add there?
So like also I don't think you're going to be helped by working in an outpatient clinic.
Right.
I don't recommend that. Um,
Infusion centers.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I think that paints a pretty good picture where you're basically locked off from the kind of general nursing,
yeah,
as you would say.
because you really want foundational nursing to continue your career.
Right. And you want as much variety as you can get. Like I remember being incredibly frustrated. It was not my last semester, but it was like second to last when we were starting to take like 2, 3 patients at a time. The problem was I kept getting lap choles. I would get somebody pre-surgical lap chole. Oh, they just came back from their lap chole. Oh, they're gonna discharge tomorrow. I was like, fucking fuck. Stop. Give me a GI bleed for God's sake. Like, give me something. So then finally my teacher switches my assignment and gives me something else. And this guy has this like fucked up illness and they can't figure out what it is. He's been there weeks. They have no idea. He's wasting away. And I'm like, can we find a middle ground somewhere here, please? Like, somewhere between like your standard, like in the hospital 2 nights for the same fucking surgery, and then you give me someone who has such a rare disease they don't even know what the hell it is. Like, thanks. How do I write up this patho?
Yeah.
It's like idiopathic 7 different diagnoses that they're not sure about. Like,
see, that would be something good for like nurse practitioner school.
yes. And here's the thing. I was a really, I felt like I was catching on. I was keeping up. He had like one of those Aspira drains. He had a peritoneal drain. So I was doing stuff. I was doing stuff I'd never done before. That was cool. I don't mean to say it was cool because the man was sick, but I mean, it was cool that I got to do things to help him that also helped me learn. That's what was cool.
Exactly.
But it's true. Like, you need to see as much as you can. You need to take the hip fractures, the GI bleeds, the lap choles, the pancreatitis, the sinusitis. You need to like spread yourself across the specialties as much as you can.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that unless you have information that leads you to believe that you're going to like not grandfather in, that's not the right word, but unless you're going to, like, some people will do their internship in ICU. Like, I knew a woman, she wasn't in my class, she was a couple semesters ahead of me. She was an NA in the ICU for years. So when she went into nursing school, she was able to make an agreement that she would do her internship in the ICU with plans to then take a staff job in the ICU.
Yeah.
But those occurrences are rare because she was already in that environment for years. They're not generally going to take someone that's never worked as a CNA, never worked ICU. They're not going to put you in a situation where you're in an ICU suddenly and then doing that fresh out of school. Like,
right.
You have to really specifically be tailored to that. And what the student told me, which I found incredibly interesting, and actually made a lot of sense, is she said they don't want students who know a lot about the specialty. They want a clean slate. They don't want you coming in with preconceived notions about how you're going to care for these patients. They want people that are going to come in and learn, because like you said, NCLEX world is very different than real life on the floor world. And so I just thought it was interesting that she said, no, actually, they want the opposite of people who have a shit ton of experience necessarily. They want people who know the specialty, but are going to be receptive to teaching, and not just come in and be like, well, I already know how to do this. Honey, no, you don't.
Exactly.
A cocky nurse is a dangerous nurse.
Mm-hmm. I've witnessed that a few times.
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
episode right there.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to point out too was this probably will not happen for quite some time. But when I graduated from nursing school, there were not a lot of hospitals hiring new grads.
Right.
So, and I remember a lot of my teachers saying this when they were younger too. So I didn't have much choice of where I went to work my first job. And I will tell you, I was thankful that I did med surge because the first job that I took was a skilled rehab job, which was horrible. But
Yeah.
but you know, that time in med surge really prepared me. But if I had done like maternity or 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 something like that, I would have had no clue what to do with
Same. Yeah.
myself. So you just have to keep in mind that sometimes there may not be a job that you want out there, and you have to take something to get experience so that you can move up the ladder.
Yeah, that's true. But, I'm a firm believer that anything that you aren't going to enjoy or isn't going to be what you want, that's an opportunity to show your strength, to show your adaptability, to show your versatility and your ability to do what you need to do without fucking complaining about it every second of every day.
Right.
And I also think that, if you're taking one of these positions and you know that it's not what you want to do forever, well, then you need to make sure that you are educating yourself, continuing to grow, giving people reason to believe that you'd be good in another area. You need to make sure that, if it's not something that you like, still make sure you're doing it well.
Yeah.
Because even if you hate it, you don't want somebody to, when you're applying for that dream job, you don't want them to look at your current job and go, well, you're kind of lackluster here. Well, right. I don't like that job. Well, what proof do I have that you're going to like this one, So even if you're doing something that you don't want to do it well so that you can get the hell out of there.
Exactly. And don't make it look like you don't like it too.
Right. Nobody likes a Debbie Downer. I hate that phrase, but it is the perfect phrase to describe those nurses that come to work, and even before you've finished giving report, 4 or 5 complaints have spilled out of their mouth. They've rolled their eyes. They're sighing. They're slamming their pen on the table. Like, leave it at home. You don't like what you're doing. Do it better than anybody, and then get the fuck out of there.
Exactly.
That's my philosophy. And if you're stuck, if you're really, really stuck, you got to summon that energy to do the things that are going to get you out of there.
Exactly. You got to do what you got to do. Well, I think that's exhausted our topic so far. What do you think?
I think it has, but, hopefully there's a lot of good information in here for people that are in the thick of it or about to enter school. And then I just want to leave on kind of a more upbeat note, and that is that I think that there are a lot of great ways to learn to take notes, even if you've been taking notes since the 2nd grade. There are a lot of really great videos on different styles of note taking. And even though this sounds super fucking nerdy, and I just said it was like fun and exciting, I guess to me it is. But the other thing I recommend people do is develop their own shorthand. Learn how to take a note, learn how to make this information work for you. So go out and buy some fun pens, some stationery, get a couple highlighters, get some gold markers, bling that shit out, make learning a little bit more fun. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make it enjoyable, or you're going to be really horrible for 4 years or 2 years or whatever you want to take.
I'm 36 years old, and I got a Finding Nemo binder for my pathology class. I don't give a fuck. I love Nemo.
And this is the one that doesn't want to go to Disney.
Shut it. Maybe someday I'll go to Disney.
With us.
But I have too much of a potty mouth for Disney. I'm not allowed to leave the hotel until after dark. Like Mickey Mouse, he's going to be able to hear all my curse words, and then they're going to kick me out of the happiest place on earth for being the unhappiest person.
I think you're going to be just fine.
All right. Well, Brad, it was really good talking to you. I wish you well in your semester. I'm sure we'll have plenty more to say about that as this season goes on. Um, any final thoughts for our returning students?
Try not to cuss in class.
And also make sure you don't drink the night before a big exam. Just don't do it.
It might sound like a good idea, but it really isn't.
It never is. It never is. Hydrate, go to bed early.
Even though we've probably both done it.
Yeah, but that's how I know it doesn't work. All right. Peace out, guys. Happy nursing.
See y'all.
All right. Bye.
Bye.